Okay, welcome to Saloon Sports Scout Talk Season 1, Episode 5. And today we're going to continue talking about offensive line and wide receivers. But before we get into that, we're going to talk about media scouts, 30 visits, local visits, and their importance. As always, I'm Walter, that's Ben, and we're going to jump right into things with our first topic, which is something that Ben and I have been talking about off camera and off social media for a couple of months now when it comes to media scouts and how they talk about players, hype players, and I guess in the past couple of weeks we've spoken about how the combine plays into that, since it's basically a big media event. The NFL's turned into a gigantic production now, and it didn't used to be that just 10 years ago. But it goes beyond that. Some media scouts, and by media scouts, we're not talking about people on ESPN and all that kind of stuff. They're media scouts, but we're talking about more of the phenomenon of social media, people on social media getting followings, talking about drafting, everything like that. Like basically what we're doing as well. When they talk about players, sometimes it kind of seems as an ungenuine way to build up a prospect, especially when they don't produce write-ups or conversations that show strengths, weaknesses, and an unbiased point of view of a player. And it kind of can cause individuals to become inflated in the mind of a casual NFL fan who just wants to learn more about players. Then you have them asking a lot of questions that I've seen in this past week of, what about this player? And I'm like, why are you asking about this player in this round when they have this low grade on, or far lower grade on them? I'm like, then I search around. I was like, oh, someone else is saying that they're 2 rounds ahead of what most scouts are saying they are. So that kind of stuff is happening. It's unfortunate. And Ben, what would you like to add in on that?
Well, I think for the most part, it's part of our society now. Like, people want to sensationalize things. So when you get a guy that, like just DK Metcalf, for instance, somebody that runs a 4.3 at a combine when he's that big, they're going to sensationalize him and hype him up to be more than what he actually is. It's wrong and disingenuous, but that's kind of where we are right now with social media.
Yeah, no, I think I'm the main person who's getting on the soapbox and saying his tape is not a first round player tape. It isn't. It isn't at all. You watch the tape, no, it's not. I'll have that argument with literally anyone. For those who pay attention to the draft show, when they were at the combine, I actually had a question read that I wrote in about DK Metcalf not having first round tape, and kind of agreed. DK Metcalf is getting that potential because of the hype around his 40 and vertical leap. It's
bench press.
There's more to it than being and it's bench press. There's more to being a wide receiver than that. And I don't really need my wide receiver throwing up 20. What did you do? 25 reps at 25. You don't ever need to do that. And he doesn't play that strong. That's also the problem. He doesn't play that strong. So I mean, Mike Ray last week, as we talked about, him was the top of the third. And I said he's going to get into the first because of height and what he can be. I'll admit the potential is really high if he can put it together, but the tape does not say he warrants that. If you want to take that risk, okay. But that's kind of more of the quarterback type risk teams take. So that's kind of where we're sitting at. And this week, Ben and I are Dallas Cowboys fans. We don't discriminate against any other fandom here. We talk about anything, but there's been talk a lot this week during when we're getting to the next segment about 30 visits. One of them was Gerald Willis from Miami. People were talking about, will he be available in the second for the Cowboys? And I'm like, what? Why would you even consider him? my grade on this is the fourth. I have him because even earlier there was some hype talking about that he could be a good third round pick. I grade him as a fourth, and I haven't seen too many people. I haven't seen any what I would say credible scouts saying he's a second round pick. So I basically said he could go in between the third and sixth because of if it only takes one team to believe a player is well above where most have him ranked. Ask EJ EJ Manuel, ask Quincy Carter, ask. I'm sure there's lots more, but those are two that pop in my mind at the quarterback position. Of they were drafted well last year. The running back Seattle took in the first round, Penny. I don't know.
Rashad Penny.
Rashad Penny. I had a third round grade. He was one of the few players that actually did a real in-depth write-up on because I saw him in this bowl game. I was like, oh, this guy's good. He's a third round pick. They took him the first. So that happens. It only takes one player. It only takes one team to believe that. So I think that's an important thing to bring. When a team does that, that's different. They actually have no excuse to do that because they are literally paid to do this stuff, and they spend all the time and due diligence on these players. When they do that, that doesn't make sense. Raiders under Al Davis they kind of became a laughing stock of doing stuff like that. The Cleveland Browns, up until the last couple of years, were thought to do stuff like that. But media scouts, I don't know. We've read and saw a lot of other things out there and had conversations. Well, what do you think it's coming down to? Just not doing enough of the homework? Because we can talk about the grind it is actually looking at all this tape. We can talk about that.
Those are the fun conversations to have. But I think what this boils down to, I mean, at least on the surface, is these scouts are putting too much stock into the combine. And that really because those are the things you can actually, the measurables you can see and tangibly talk about rather than actually going through and spending your time breaking down film. I feel like it's easier to look at the combine and try to project somebody superficially project somebody, not actually getting down to the meat and bones of the type of prospect they are.
Yeah, I know we talked about the combine in the past couple weeks, but what combine is basically a gigantic televised job fair. Yeah. And you're put in situations that you can prepare for. That's why when I look at guys who didn't run or didn't do drills or didn't run because non-injury related reasons, is like, why not? You knew what the tests were. You mean you didn't take all this time to train to do well in these tests? That says something about you and your preparation. Just run it and do bad. If your tape is your tape, I'm going to grade you by your tape. Because that's kind of what it is. Because even when quarterbacks throwing on air, I don't care. Wide receivers catching on air, I don't care that much. I mean, there's some things you can take out of that, especially for quarterbacks and how touch and all those type of things. And a wide receiver, I think he'll just drop anything. But a lot of these positions, it's just on air. You're never really going to be doing these type of things. As we talked about before, the 3-cone, the shuttle are the things I look at for most positions to see if it means anything. Other than that, I'm just like, this is fun, I guess.
Combine should really only be used to fine-tune your rankings. You should not move people up rounds based on their performance there.
And I think a lot of it comes before, even before the combine. A lot of media scouts just look at production in college, which can be a red herring, positive and negative. Yeah. For players. I mean, one of the examples that we talked about is Gardner Minshew put up ridiculous numbers this year. That can inflate your opinion on him, but if you don't realize the type of offense he plays in, or for example, JJ Arcega-Whiteside doesn't have big numbers comparatively, but he plays in a run-first offense, and he's a wide receiver. So you shouldn't really negate his production too much because of the type of offense he plays in. And that can cause people to kind of put people under the radar. And then players like Penny Hart, who didn't get a combine invite for some reason this year, has kind of been buried because he was at the combine. And no, I don't know, he went to a small school and no one wants to talk about him. I haven't done my official grade on him yet, but I am. But I think he is being buried and he probably shouldn't be. So, I mean, like, it's just like there's so much things people get caught up in rather than doing the grind of watching the film, which we've both done. I think together we're probably 100 and something, and we're probably going to get to 200 by the combine.
Yeah, I think I'm around 50 or 60 prospects so far.
Yeah, so combined we're getting close to 200 or get close to the 150 mark and get 200. So that's a lot of time. Like that's a lot of film, and certain positions are not as enticing to watch.
The line.
Yeah, offensive defensive line. I mean, yeah, it can be a grind trying to go through, pause, rewind, look at the technique, look at the feed, look at all this, see if they got pressures, see if they got their hands up, see if they're hustling, or if they're not hustling, or they loafing to take a play off. Well, yeah. Well, that's kind of from the defense line. From the offense line, if you take a playoff, you just get beat.
Yep.
So
it's pretty noticeable if you take a playoff.
So it's so that kind of, even wide receivers, which I'm looking at right now, is kind of like, yeah, you can see when a wide receiver is tipping their hand if they're going to be in a player nine, if they're not exactly someone who's hustling all the time. That's noticeable and irritates me. So it's like, yeah, there's finer tunes because a lot of players want to, especially the cut ups on Twitter. They're like, oh, look at this big highlight. I'm like, yeah, that's neat, but what are the other 60 plays from that game that player was involved in? So it's like, yeah, lots of guys can get highlights, but I can do a cut up of Bryce Butler's college film. You could like a first rounder. So you can do that with just about anyone. So, I mean, I guess that's just what it goes down to. There's a lot more that goes into actually scouting rather than just falling into the hype associated around players who become mythological within realms of social media. I see names on YouTube of like Hakeem Butler, which I have rated really high, but there's a very popular YouTuber that says Hakeem Butler, LeBron in NFL pads. I'm like, get out of here, stop it. Or DK Metcalf was the next Josh Gordon.
Yeah, people get carried away with their player comparisons. And it's not fair to the prospect or to the person you're comparing them to, because people are different. I mean, they might share similar traits, but there's not,
different playbooks you're going to be involved in.
Different playbook, different scheme,
different situation,
different environment,
different playing time. I mean, there's so much that goes into why I don't comparing players, because they're going to 1,000% different situations in a different city with a different lifestyle. We don't exactly see most of what happens off the field, so that's a part of that media scouts getting like jumble is love to do, and I'm just like, that's just not the best thing to do, especially in the NFL. I guess in baseball you can kind of get away with it because of the sucky minor league experience is going to be the same for about everyone unless you're like a first round pick. So it's a little easier to do it like that, but in NFL, no, you just stop. So I mean, yeah, so I guess that there's a lot more that goes into it than the hype, and we can get involved in that because what basically kind of sparked the idea is that this was from the 30 visits being released and some of the local visits, and that goes into like, what do these things mean? Does this craft out a draft strategy for teams? Does it give you insight on what a team is thinking? And I'll throw that out to you. What do you take from 30 visits? Do you pay attention to them much, or do you think they're relevant?
Yeah, they're relevant just because, like you said, it gives you insight onto what each team, the position of needs. It's a view into how each team is viewing their biggest needs heading into the draft. And for the Cowboys, as an example, they're bringing in a lot of wide receivers that aren't very high up, except for Deebo Samuel. A lot of these guys are people that you could probably get in the 7th or as an undrafted free agent. There's not many offensive linemen that they're bringing in. One of the big names that I've covered is Greg Little, and I've got him, I believe, as a mid second rounder or early second rounder. I don't foresee him falling all the way to us or to the Cowboys at 53. Is that right?
58.
58. Yeah, 58. But if he's there, I don't see tackle being that big of an issue. So I don't understand why they brought him in, but maybe they're just doing their due diligence. But that's all it really is, just getting a last look at these guys before draft day.
I mean, I think especially with the Cowboys, for example, with Lyle Collins, who's being paid $11 million, which I don't think a lot of people know.
Yeah,
but
that's
he's
a different conversation. He's got a great agent.
with he's coming up and he's likely to make a lot of money elsewhere. So I guess it kind of makes sense. I don't think I can't remember where you had Greg Little as far as what number at tackle he was, but I don't think he's top 5-ish range.
I've got my big board right here. Yeah, I've got him ranked the 11th best offensive line product
and
as a mid-second round grade.
So yeah, you'd be like your fourth or fifth tackle. So I mean, yeah, it's unlikely the Cowboys have him as their top-rated tackle. That seems highly unlikely. So I think if they might be looking at him at 60 or 58. So I mean, it's something, but why wouldn't they just put Connor Williams out there at right tackle or something in the future? But so I mean, like, there's interesting things there. Like they brought in Mike Weber and Damian Harris, running back with. They're not my two. I think they're my fifth and sixth running backs that I have on my board. I know a lot of different people have Damian Harris as number 2. I don't. I don't even have Josh Jacobs as number 1. That's one of my hot takes. So they're definitely looking at running back. So, I mean, I don't exactly know what I take from them. And sometimes they just, again, they'll tell you a position to need, and then they'll just have a lot of players in that position. They've had safeties in and wide receivers in.
There were a lot of safeties.
I'm looking at wide receivers. I'm looking at safeties. I'm looking at. It seemingly looks like they're looking at linebackers that can get late or just a priority free agent. So I mean, there's definitely interest in players that they're bringing in. It's just how high of an interest, and is there a bigger interest in another player? Because I looked at I'll be talking about one of the wide receivers they had in for their 30 visit. And the others were not even that high on my list, so I'm kind of surprised that they even had them to even scout while we have the last few weeks left. So it was a little shocking. So it's
also think it is also worth noting that there's so much uncertainty on draft day. Like you really don't know who's going to fall to you, especially when your first pick is at 58. So you bring in all these guys that you're just hoping some might fall, but you also want to keep your options open as far as who would be the right fit there should certain dominoes fall.
I mean, since you looked at them, I'll ask if at 58 there are no highly rated safeties or defensive linemen on the board, and Greg Little is there, well, would you take him at 58?
Yeah, I mean he doesn't play with the type of tenacity that I would like to have as an offensive tackle, but even despite that, he's still a quality offensive tackle. And he's a guy that you could probably move inside, but I'd definitely keep him on the outside because he is very athletic, and he has the type of athleticism you want in a pass-happy NFL. He's not going to be an all-pro year one, but the way that their offensive line is built right now, I think he's a guy you can plug in right away and still have a cohesive unit and be able to keep them together for a few seasons.
Would you rank him higher than Connor Williams?
Based on what I saw out of Connor Williams last year, yeah, definitely. But I also don't know what Connor Williams can do if he moves to tackle as well, because he was playing out of position last year. So that factors in as well.
I think the coaches that would fight you on that, but that's a different story. Yeah, I think that's. Yeah, I looked at the list, and Deebo Samuel's the one that I stood out because that's a guy who might be there at 58. But
yeah, I would rather take Deebo Samuel over Greg Little just because of what we have. Like I believe David Hellman brought it up on the draft show. So yeah, in short term, the Cowboys are set at wide receiver, but if you bring in someone like Deebo Samuel, we'll be set for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. It depends on what you like at wide receiver. You don't like Deebo or not. I mean, he's. I know I talked about him last week, but at wide receiver, it kind of is coming down to what type of receiver you like. And if you like one who's not going to really be a gigantic down the field threat, which I'm pulling it right now. He's fourth right now on my list. So, and I have him as the top 3 on the cusp of the end of the second round. So 58 would kind of be reasonable, perfectly reasonable for him. So yeah, but I mean, if for some reason actually we can even talk about it. The write-up I did where I even asked was like Hakeem Butler, Paris Campbell, and Deebo Samuel are basically touching on my board. Which one would you rather like? Cowboys fans said Deebo Samuel. I actually disagree. Out of those 3, I honestly would take Hakeem Butler because if he's there, which there's not a lot of hype around Hakeem Butler as far as what I'm hearing from teams, media scouts like Hakeem Butler, but I have him as so far as my second. Would he be there at 58? If he was, I would take Hakeem Butler in a second. So I mean, like even JJR Whiteside, my top ranked wide receiver, I don't hear a lot of love coming from him either. The guys you hear talking about like DK, AJ, and those like Riley Ridley, I have them way down. Marquise Brown, like they might go in the first. Like there's talk about all 3 of those going in the first, or all 3 of them going in the top 40, and I'm like, okay, potential over what you see on film, but okay. So I mean, yeah, if Deebo is there and they take Deebo, will I be upset at 58? No. If they trust their board and he's the best on the board,
yeah,
I couldn't be mad. It's like he's not my favorite type of. He's not what I would like to have as a slot receiver for my personal preference. But I can't say he's a bad player, and I can't say he wouldn't be worth that pick. He's not going to do much at all this first year, really. Like that's definitely looking for the future. He's not going to help you more than likely get you to a Super Bowl. He's not. I can't see him taking snaps away from Cobb. I can't see him taking snaps away from Gallup, and definitely not taking snaps away from Cooper. So, and Witten's coming back. So, what would they do with him? So, like these are conversations all teams across the NFL are probably having. Scouts from the NFL are having like, what are we going to do with this player if we get him? Is it for now or is it for the future? Deebo would definitely be for the future, and talks of taking a running back in the second round for the Dallas Cowboys when Ezekiel Elliott gets going to have about 90% of the carries. Maybe if they want to get that down to 85, is that worth the value of taking a running back in the second round when I literally right now have 8? Ben's shaking his head no for those who are listening to the podcast.
Nope.
Like profusely. It's like I have about 12 running backs with third round grades. Some of those are going to drop all the way to the 6th, 7th round. So no, don't. I could not justify taking out a running back in the second round. And if that happens on draft day, I'll definitely say this is a low value pick and tell you why. So I mean, yeah, that's. I guess yeah, there's a lot to look into. The 30 visits. So you have players. There's probably someone there or 2 players there that are going to end up Cowboys by priority free agents or whatnot. That's a great way to get a priority free agent, is having them walk around that gigantic complex and being like, do you want to spend your time here? Or do you want to go spend your time in Buffalo? Choice is yours. Real cold there. So it's like, so I mean, that could be a great way to lure in priority free agents. There's a lot of them. And yeah, the player I brought up was why I made me start scratching my head. It's like, Gerald Willis, Miami 3 technique, 5 technique. I don't see value at him as a 5 technique, but a lot of fans were asking like, oh, so can Cowboys take him in the second round? I'm like, why would anyone take him in the second round? And I saw a lot of media scouts had him graded as a second. I'm like, no, absolutely not. Like I would argue people like have him as basically as a fourth round pick that I wouldn't love even taking in the 4th. It would be like my last option of taking him in the 4th. But so I think that kind of ties into the first segment, and this segment is like teams look at the 30 business. They're definitely going to take that player because he was on 30 business. I don't think so. I mean, if Willis slips to the 6th, go ahead, take him.
Yeah, that's fine.
Second, no. If the scouting department has somehow lost their ability to scout college players like that, which Cowboys have been drafting extremely well, I would question the entire process. somehow his name was called in the second round for the Dallas Cowboys or any team. Like any fan of any team, if you hear Gerald Wilson's name in the second round for your team, you should ask a lot of questions. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess we can pivot off of that. And also local visits. They're basically just every team has a region where they can basically have in players from that specific region. That specific region is get in, take a look at this local players. That's like called Dallas Day for Cowboys fans, or probably imagine Philly Day for Philly fans, San Fran Day, or maybe Bay Day for San Francisco. I mean, this is local kids you can have in that went to high school or college there, just to do the same thing as the Dallas official visit day type thing. So that's basically all that is. Basically the same thing that just lets teams talk to other players that are local. But yeah, again, I don't like the Purdue David Blow. Did you did scout him, right?
Yeah. I wasn't very impressed.
Yeah, he's a Dallas Day, or he's a Dallas Day visit for the Cowboys, and I saw that name, was like, I think Ben doesn't like him.
Yeah, he was, if I remember correctly, he was towards the end of my rankings, like the 17th or 18th best quarterback in a weak quarterback class. So,
yeah, and typically you're not going to have that many quarterbacks.
He's somebody who could come in and be on a practice squad and give you reps there, but I wouldn't hang my hat on getting any type of production on the field out of him.
Yeah, he just might be an arm for camp, maybe.
Yeah. Granted, he was on a bad team, Purdue, if I remember right.
Yeah, he's from Purdue.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess we can pivot that and start talking about the offensive line that you looked at this week.
All right. So the first offensive lineman we're going to look at today is Nate Davis out of UNC Charlotte. He played tackle last year, but guard is his natural position. He played guard his first 2 years in college and then switched over to tackle just out of basic necessity for the 49ers. He's 6'3", 316. I've got him graded at the end of the third round, but I project he's going to go somewhere in the fourth or fifth. He's got good functional strength, and creates decent movement at the line of scrimmage. Has the ability to lock on and twist a defender. He has trouble with the bull rush. He's going to need to work on engaging linebackers at the second level because he's got a tendency to, once he gets there, he has a tendency to drop his shoulders or drop his head and becomes top heavy. So linebackers can very easily get around him and go make the play. He shows a good football IQ and the ability to read defenses and blitzes. However, it's worth noting that Davis was academically ineligible in 2014, which means he couldn't practice or attend meetings. So he's still raw in his overall football awareness. And he also served a 4-game suspension for undisclosed reasons as a senior. So there's some positives there on film, but there's also some negatives off the field which is the reason why he's probably going to drop into the fourth or fifth round, maybe even later. The next is Bo Benchwell from Wisconsin. He's 6'6", 305. I've got him graded at the end of the third round. I project him somewhere between the third and the fifth. He's very, very athletic for his size. He's going to need to work on his landmarks when in the run game. A decent puller, but can overrun his blocking assignments when he has to pull and turn up. Moves well in space, but it's clear he needs to work on squaring up against smaller, quicker defenders. What makes him interesting is he was an all-state tight end and defensive end in high school and transitioned to offensive line as a freshman and became a 3.5-year starter. And he was named second team All Big Ten as a sophomore, and third team as a junior, and first team as a senior. So that type of progression as an offensive lineman after switching over from tight end and defensive end, that it bodes well, in my opinion, as far as how he can pick up the position and develop long term. He given his size, he rarely gets lower than defender, but he will even if he loses the leverage battle, he's still strong enough to and has the fight to force a stalemate. Definitely needs more seasoning and understanding the position, but he handles stunts and blitzes well. Hasn't really figured out how to use his size in the run game. He lacks overall upper body strength to get a consistent movement at the point of attack. So raw is a very understatement. Raw is an understatement for Bo. Pass blocking is the best aspect of his game, but it's still not pristine. Good technique in his hands and a punch, but he's just still inconsistent in the run game. He's going to need to work on his flexibility and pad height because that'll help him win the leverage battle more often than not. Moving on, we've got Mitch Hyatt out of Clemson. Mitch Hyatt is probably the most decorated offensive lineman that's this far down in my rankings. He played for Clemson, national champion. He was third team All-American as a freshman for the Tigers. That's not freshman All-American. That's third team All-American as a freshman. Started all 15 games at left tackle. Second team All-Conference in 2014. And he also won the ACC best lineman 2 years in a row. He plays with tenacity and fights to the whistle. He's got great awareness to pick up blitzes and stunts. He had 28 reps for the combine, but he just does not play with that type of strength. And he also lacks explosiveness. He's got stagnant feet, and it shows decent technique in the running game. Pass pro definitely needs some work. His footwork's rather sloppy for somebody that has those type of accolades. Let's see. His biggest problem with the footwork is he has in pass pro is he takes false steps, which in the NFL against better competition especially on the edge, you're going to get beat a lot more often than you do in college. He's often gets caught lunging at the defender, and his punch is too wide, and he ends up catching the defender. And he's also very susceptible to speed rushes and spin moves. So I don't understand how he was that highly touted as far as like postseason awards goes, but maybe just him being a part of the Clemson's offense helped him. But I've got him graded as a 4th round prospect, and I expect him. My projection is somewhere in the 5th or 6th.
You don't think he was going to overvalue Clemson?
I think that had a big part to do with it. But he's not a terrible offensive line prospect, but I don't see him going any higher than the 4th round. After that, we've got Tyree St. Louis out of Miami. He's 6'5", 313. I've got him listed as a 4th round prospect as well. He's very light on his feet and agile. He's got a fantastic kickback, and he's fast to the second level. But when he's getting to the second level, he takes horrible angles and usually will end up missing his assignment on the backside. His balance and flexibility is an issue. Excuse me. And he can get very top heavy, and a good defender can just do a swim move and get by him. He's fairly aggressive as a lineman. He's a 3-year starter and has experience at both tackle position. Was an ACC honorable mention as a senior. He's got great durability. He ended his career with 34 consecutive starts at right tackle. He mirrors defenders well. The problem with his kickback is there's sometimes a wasted movement. He'll take his back leg up a little too much, and which also factors into his balance issues. And he loses his base, really. So when he loses his base, he'll lose the power that he has in his punch. But even talking more about his punch, his hands are easily swatted away by the defender. So he can be good, but he's still got some seasoning to do. I get him graded as a 4th round. I think his deficiencies can be coached. He may see some early playing time as a swing tackle, just filling in when somebody needs a breather. But I expect him to be taken. That he might have the potential to start later on in his career. I expect him to be taken somewhere in the middle of day 3, not before then, just because of his deficiencies that were shown on film. And that is all I got.
So you basically see him as pretty much just being an injury replacement for the first couple of years.
Yeah,
which
I like his athleticism in the pass game, but in order to start, you need more than just that one aspect to be good.
And I will jump in with the wide receivers. We'll start with Miles Boykin, who I'll go over the rankings now, since these guys definitely disrupt to the rankings a bit. Miles Boykin now I have as the 5th rated wide receiver on my list. He's after Arcega-Whiteside, Hakeem Butler, Paris Campbell, and Deebo Samuel. I basically have him as right at the top of the 30s, He's not too far from the Butler, Campbell, and Samuel group who are touching. So that's good for him. Boykin is a 6'4", 220-pound, 4.42, 40 running wide receiver. He's, again, very, very big. He doesn't play as fast as his 4.42. I mean, he has good game speed. He has great balance, very good flexibility, outstanding coordination. He also put up great numbers in the agility drills as well, which shows that he can move within short spaces, extremely well coming out of his breaks and whatnot. He has the ability to improve there, and because since he has the athleticism, he doesn't have as good as change of direction on film to match his elite agility numbers, which but it does show that he has room to grow there if he becomes more polished as a wide receiver. He also has a ridiculous 43-inch vertical leap, which I believe he was tied for one of the top wide receivers. And at 6'4", that's getting up there to high point a ball. He's an extremely tough player. He will do the dirty work and block. He doesn't quit on his team. He doesn't have the best production or consistency throughout his career, but it seemed to all come together in 2018, which was his junior year, when things started to pick up and click for him. He seems like he took to coaching and improved while he was in college. And there was improvement all through his junior year, which was 2018. His route running also seemed to improve during the season as well. And he does have some natural instincts at the wide receiver position. It just took him a while to get there and improve, which with good coaching can happen. So some players can turn on the light a little bit later. He's he plays very strong. He seems to be very durable. He may be able to generate big plays from time to time at the next level due to his size and speed. But I don't think that's going to be a huge part of his game. He was able to do some of that in college, but I don't think that's going to translate over extremely well. Boykin has very good hands. He's good initial quickness. He can fight through press coverage. Even when corners get their hands on his chest, they can slow him down a bit, but he can get through it. He's good, not an elite blocker. He can run after the catch, but isn't as good with the ball in his hands as this testing would lead you to believe. He should be able to play all 3 wide receiver positions at the next level. He has the size for the slot, but he might be best suited for a Z and a bigger slot player. He can make contested catches, and he'll be able to high point the ball due to his insane vertical leap. It's just that he does have some questions as how he will be able to deal with physical receivers as an X at the next level, but he could be fine due to his play strength. Again, my mathematical grade for him is the top of the 3rd. He has a very high ceiling and a medium floor. He's going to need to continue proving his route running and how he comes out of his breaks on several different routes. I project he's going to be around a 2nd and 3rd, going between the 2nd and 3rd round because of the talk that came out of him out of the combine. And started people talking about him might be more going up around or whatnot. So I think he could go in the 2nd round. I can justify him going in the 2nd due to the potential. But definitely the third, he should definitely go by the end of the third round. A good wide receiver coach will be able to help him reach his potential. And landing in the wrong situation could keep him from developing to the finer aspects. But I still think he'll be a serviceable wide receiver, even if he doesn't get up to his very good potential type level. Then after Boykin's at Notre Dame. And after that is Andy Isabella, who became a Senior Bowl darling for a lot of people. He's from the University of UMass, and he now is at the eighth wide receiver for me, and he's after Boykin, A.J. Brown, and DK Metcalf. He's close to Metcalf and Brown for my rankings. So we'll talk about Andy Isabella a bit. He's 5'9", 188, not a big guy, but he ran the top 40 speed at the wide receiver position with a 4.31. He tied for the third fastest 40 at the combine overall. He had extremely well in agility drills. He can jump. He doesn't have elite foot quickness, but he has elite foot quickness, great change of direction, coordination, and game speed. Like on his 4.31 shows up on film. Like unlike guys like Boykin and DK and even A.J. Brown, who ran these good times. Well, not admit A.J. Brown ran about 4.49, but some of these other guys like DK Metcalf ran almost an identical 40. You can see on film that Andy Isabella his game speed's far faster. So Andy Isabella grades out as a phenomenal athlete. And despite his size, he's a tough player who was extremely productive at UMass in college. You could see him take a few plays off, but it wasn't a gigantic problem. He also was extremely consistent, and he improved as his career went on and has great instincts on the field, which helped him get open. And you could see him finding holes and knowing when to sit down on his route and give his quarterback a window to throw in. He doesn't play extremely strong, and it definitely won't be a big part of his game at the next level. His size is going to probably leave him susceptible to injuries. He's really small, doesn't have a very muscular build, but he does know how to get open. And if he gets open in the open field, he will be able to make big plays if he's in the open field. If he can get that space and go, and he also has the speed enough to run seam routes from the slot or post routes over the top as well. He can take the top off of defense, but again, at a size of 5'9", it's questionable how teams are going to feel about that and if he'll be able to utilize that at the next level. But I think he can be an explosive player. He has good hands. They're not great. He's outstanding initial quickness. He's very good after the catch. He won't be much of a blocker at all at the next level. He needs to improve his route running and his hands. He looks to be like an slot-only player, but he might be able to take some snaps at Z, but I wouldn't count on him being a good outside threat. Definitely don't expect him to line up as an X and do anything. So he might be pinpointed as a slot-only guy. He does need to clean up some of his route running, get a clean release. I don't think he's going to be able to beat a press if a physical rider or physical corner can get their hands on him, but he can definitely be a mismatch against safeties and linebackers. Did not put a linebacker on Isabella. So yeah, again, my mathematical grade for him is a mid-third. I project he's going to go between the second and fourth. I say that because, again, that speed in some of the games he had, I believe it was against Georgia, he completely carved them to pieces and kept getting behind the defense. And the big playability might cause some teams to fall in love with him and take him in the second round. But I think you're going to go between the second and fourth. The team might also look at his elite testing and agility drills and be like, this guy is worth it. But I think he has a medium ceiling and low floor. I don't expect him to turn into like a Pro Bowler, but I do think he could be a extremely good slot player who can get you catches, first downs, and if you scheme well, he can definitely get you some big plays as well. Then after Andy Isabella, after that, we have Hunter Renfrow from Clemson. And you talked about a guy he played with not too long ago.
Mitch Hyatt.
Hunter Renfrow. Yeah. Hunter Renfrow, 5'10", 187. Very interesting player. He's now the 13th rated wide receiver that I have. Um, but he ran a 4.59 at the combine. But he did excel at the short space agility drills. So that's good for potential route running and coming out of breaks, which you can see. He has solid game speed. He's definitely not a speedster. Nothing special there. He does have outstanding change of direction, and he's more about short space effectiveness than vertical athleticism. He doesn't have a high vertical leap. He doesn't have a great broad jump. He's definitely a short 5 to 10 yard route runner who can get you some yards there or get you some catches there. He wasn't the most productive at Clemson, but he showed up in big games. He could have been better utilized because he was open a lot on tape. I think that can come down to, I think his lack of consistency and production can come down to game planning, quarterback play, and a lot of different things.
Receiver.
Oh, say that again?
I said Clemson was always deep at wide receiver as well.
Oh, yeah. But he's an outstanding team player. But he was open a lot on film. And I know a lot of people talk about the game against Alabama a couple of years ago when Clemson won the national championship. He's a competitive player. I'm not sure how many big hits he'll be able to take, but again, a lot of it just comes down to playing at Clemson, quarterback play, scheming, and all that kind of different things. I don't know. He might have maxed out at how much he can learn about playing the slot position because he's already really refined and he seems to already took to it and learned all that he can learn. So I don't know how much he can improve there. He has great instincts and reaction on the field. Like he can find holes and sit down in them and give his quarterback an open receiver to look at. And he has great concentration, field awareness, and all those things you look for. He's a smart, heady player. He has next to no play strength whatsoever, and that shows. He has a history of small injuries as well, so his durability is going to come into question. He's extremely unlikely to ever get you many big plays throughout his NFL career. He's definitely going to be more a possession underneath type of player from the slot unless you build in some trick plays for him. He has very good hands, good initial quickness. He shows the ability to be a technician as a route runner. He's really good coming out of his break. He actually might be one of the best I've looked at wide receiver in his class at doing that. He adjusts to the ball extremely well. He's got extremely well hand-eye coordination, but he's going to be a complete liability when blocking. When he's in the game, it might be a complete tipping your hand that's going to be a pass. He's not going to do a great deal after the catch. He can make a guy miss and get a couple extra yards, but he's not going to be special there. So he's definitely going to be a slot-only player. Like he has no flexibility at all in that regard, and he does, however, does. So that's going to hurt him. I think so. My mathematical grade for him is a 4th. I believe he's going to go anywhere between the 5th and 7th round. He has a medium floor and a low ceiling. His lack of flex is going to probably knock him out the 4th round for teams. Like he's never going to be a threat at C or X. But he is a polished route runner, and he's a technician at the slot. He's doing things that you would think DK Metcalf was doing route running. This is how people talk about him. But yeah, he knows how to run. He knows how to get himself open. He knows how to get out of the break extremely well. So if a team needs someone that comes in to fill the slot, he could do that. He could probably do that tomorrow. If you just ask him to be a slot player and go get you 30 to 40 catches, I think he could do that in his rookie year. So he can provide a lot of value at the end of the draft for a team who needs a safety blanket with reliable hands. And he could be one of those guys that turns into a quarterback's best friend in the right system. He could be catching 75, 80 balls a year. And finally, I have Emmanuel Hall out of Missouri, who was a 30 visit for the Cowboys. We'll take a look at him really quick. And he is a 6'2", 201 guy. Despite dealing with injury, he was able to run a 4.39 at the combine. He also tied Paris Campbell for the best vertical leap at wide receiver at 43.5. That's getting up there. He also had the best broad jump at the position, 141 inches. He has very good game speed. Again, he's another guy who His 40 is slower than DK Metcalf, but he looks. You can definitely tell he's faster on film than DK. He didn't participate in other agility drills due to doctor's orders at the combine because he was dealing with injury. He has fluid hips, good coordination, and very good foot quickness, but he can be knocked off balance. But when it comes to his competitive, he's definitely a finesse wide receiver. And I don't mean that in the good way. He avoids contact. He's inconsistent consistency, and you can tell by the way he's coming out of from the snap as to when he's expected to be a target on that play or when it's a run. The effort level drops noticeably. So he's not going to be someone who's going to lead by example on the field. And I question how much of a team player he is because of how obvious that was on a lot of these plays. Hall didn't really seem to develop much at all at the wide receiver position throughout his career. Whether that was due to injury or what the coach staff asked him to do is the question. He doesn't always concentrate, again, when the play isn't designed for him. So there are some questions there, how much he can learn and retain, and he doesn't seem to have the best instincts for the position at all. He didn't play with power when it comes to blocking or getting out of press. He does not play strong. He suffered a sports hernia at the combine and was dealing with injuries prior, so that kind of calls his durability into question. He always had some injury history at Missouri, so with his frame, he's got a slight frame for being split 6'2", so some calling question how much durability he has at the next level. He should be able to produce some explosive plays because basically he was a one-trick pony at Missouri. He basically ran down the field routes, and that should translate a bit to the next level. He's more of an athlete than a polished receiver. He projects to be a poor blocker at the next level. He's going to have to improve his hands. He's going to have to get better at getting a clean release from the press, and he's going to have to improve his route running, which was inconsistent at best when he wasn't running a downfield route. He definitely lacks a route tree. Makes him more of an X, but I don't really feel he has the strength or technique to win a lot of X at the next level either. So he could also be used as a big slot. He doesn't have a natural fit right now, in my opinion, at the NFL because he has deficiencies in all areas that you look at for different positions, but he might be best suited as a slot since he does seem like he has the ability to be fluid and in his running as a good athlete and in short spaces. So that might be the best fit for him early. So again, I project him just to be as a mathematical grades for him as a fourth. I project he's going to go between the fourth and sixth rounds. He has a medium ceiling and high floor. He has the height and speed teams love at the X position. I just don't think with his durability questions and his lack of polish for being a 4-year senior, how much more he's going to be able to develop. He just didn't show that. There's also a lot of him always not giving a lot of best effort, so that might not come down to teams. He has the physical tools. It's just going to take a lot of coaching for him to meet or exceed a ceiling. So to me, he's a perfect day 3 traits pick. So if you want a guy with speed and size who you think might be able to develop, and you want to take him in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, that's the kind of guy Emmanuel Hall is. So that's all the receivers that we have. And Emmanuel Hall again was a 30-day visit for the Dallas Cowboys, which I kind of looked at. I was like, wow, it's down there for what I was expecting to go. Then I looked at his tape and was like, yeah, he's definitely someone that shouldn't go anywhere before the day 3. But yeah, that's some interesting prospects there at wide receiver, and a lot of it's going to come down to what teams like. And I guess for the last 6 minutes we have of the show, we can talk about the future of Saloon Sports and what we're planning on doing with social media and getting our names out there. We're definitely going to be developing Facebook soon, and we're definitely going to be we're going to try to get the word out there on different sites, and we're they can talk about we're also building our website in the near future.
Yeah, website's a big deal. Hopefully we can get it up before the draft so we can link all of our write-ups in real time as people are selected. we'll see how our real jobs pan into that and how much we can actually get done before then. But that's the goal. If not, then we'll start the next draft cycle with that. We do have a Twitter. For those all interested, it's at Saloon Sports BW. As far as I guess that we don't have much in terms of social media. There is a YouTube channel by the same name where you can see all of our videos from dating back to the first time we tried to get this off the ground.
Yeah, and what we're also going to probably standing out to other platforms to do additional content, and we're definitely going to be looking at a Patreon as well once we get the website and stuff up to just give more options for people to find us and look at, because we're definitely going to be continuing this and going into next year's draft cycle as soon as this one is finished. So we won't, because we basically got started at the end of January.
Yeah.
So we're about, I believe we're about like 115, 120 prospects in, which in that time frame is actually pretty good, considering it's a lot of work.
I'm not disappointed in what we've done.
No. It's not like 300 something or other like Dane Brugler and Brian Ross have got through, but we'll next year we plan on actually having around that number, and basically around the combine next year. That would basically just be our final cross check before we get into this is what's going to happen at the draft. So next year we'll definitely be preparing, and by this time next year we'll have websites and stuff up and everything, social media completely optimized website, and hopefully we'll be also writing at a maybe one or two different sites as well as far as keeping our website up. So that's the things we definitely have to look forward to. So we're not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. And for the draft this year, it's pretty exciting. Even before when I was scouting, I definitely didn't have 120 write-ups done. So it's going to be interesting watching the draft and seeing where these players go. And because it seems like every year there's going to be one or two players who is drafted 2 rounds ahead of conventional wisdom. So prepared for that. Prepare for people dropping. There's always seems to be 1 or 2 guys who drop for some reason. Not Jay Ajayi a couple of years ago. Some people had him like, could he go in the 2nd round or 1st round? He went in the 5th. Chronic knee issue, which is probably why he's a free agent right now.
Yep.
So it's going to definitely be interesting on draft day. And so that's definitely definitely what we're building towards, and we'll be having a lot of fun on drafting on our Twitter, talking about all of this stuff. So, we hope to be giving even more content, especially if with Patreon, we'll be doing things there, maybe Twitch as well. So it's a lot of different things we'll be extending and Saloon Sports out, and hopefully soon during the down period after the draft is when we can talk about baseball season, which is now fully underway.
Yep.
So we'll be filling some of the downtime with more talk about that as well. So basically Scout Talk is a branch of Saloon Sports is when we get into the NFL draft stuff. So we'll be changing seasons and whatnot with that after the draft. And then we'll be going back to our regular Saloon Sports show. So we're not going anywhere. We've definitely planned out quite a bit of stuff. Actually, and if not next year's draft, the year after, we hope to be at the combine. So that would be a great opportunity to see these guys at the combine and not change our grades because of it. That'll be definitely fun. Maybe it won't be in Indianapolis, cross fingers. Maybe it'll be in Vegas. That'd be great. So that's kind of what we are planning for the future and whatnot. And do you have anything you want to say before we close up?
No, you pretty much covered everything. Thanks for watching.
And in the future, the main podcast will stay an hour, but we might do additional shows or whatnot that are shorter. It just depends on what people want and how much money we have coming in. So yeah, we will definitely be back here next week, probably talking more wide receivers, some corners, and Ben's going to be into the edge rushers.
Yep.
So we'll catch you then.
See you next week.